Hello, 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 hello! Hello, my beautiful babes and babettes. I am your resident active advocate, and believe me when I say you did not want me making a video for you yesterday. Because the night before, I had gotten about a solid 4 hours of sleep. Yeah, that was not pleasant. So the day before that was also Labor Day, which means I had another day off. So today I would like to embark with you on a wonderful new series on a document. I am calling it the UNDRIP because I am an asshole, but its real meaning is the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. As we went through the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, we made continuous references, and by we I mean me, we made continuous references to this document, and now I want to show y'all what it's all about, because I have read it a few times, and it's very, very pretty, and I like it, and I like it, I like it, I like it. So, in sticking to my regular format for these things, the UNDRIP is broken down into articles, and it has 46 articles in it. If I do 6 articles today, I can do 5 a day for however many days that will take, and that will take us to the end fairly quickly. I would like to stick with that format though, and while I'm not entirely positive what I want to do after this series, I may actually end up going back to my old stomping grounds and looking at a not so lovely little, and by little I mean giant, document called the Access for Ontarians with Disabilities Act, the AODA, alright? If you have not seen on this channel before what the AODA is, basically it outlines how Ontario, the province in which I live in Canada, intends to make itself accessible, fully accessible to people with disabilities, such as myself, by the year, I want to say 2025, okay? Don't quote me on that, I would have to look that up. I think it is 2025 though. They don't have that much longer, and they're sucking at it. So, this document that we're about to get into, the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, the word is peoples, not persons, thankfully, because persons sounds like one of those words that should not be a word. But, okay, compared to the one that we're about to do, the AODA is kind of iffy. And I know that people appreciate bitching online much more than they appreciate praise. So, we'll see what kind of views that gets me. I don't care about viewership. I care about your viewership because you're all very attractive, and oh my god, you're gorgeous. Did you get a haircut? I need one, badly. But while I care about individual viewers, I don't care about, being the next big thing, alright? I am doing this for the sake of edumacation. Just so y'all know. Because I'm the #1 authority on all things edumacative, especially on Indigenous issues. Good God, what am I doing? Because I am 100% a whitey, and that's okay. I mean, I like to tout myself as an ally, but I have said before, I don't need a fancy hat or a fancy title to act like an ally, which is what I'm trying to do with this. So, without further rambling on my part, we are going to get into the UNDRIP, the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Boo freaking yeah. Maximizing document right now. Yes, hello. Alright, ba-ba-da. Okay, so, to begin at the beginning, there's actually quite a bit of preamble to this, and I don't know whether I should read it all because it's like 7 pages long. So, okay. Basically, the preamble says that in accordance with, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and big international documents of that type, that is basically the kind of principle that this document is attempting to uphold in league with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Now, the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples was fully codified and put into action in 2007. I can't remember exactly when it was for the TRC. I think it was 2006 or 2005. I would have to look that up. It may have been earlier. But the two are kind of supposed to work together. As you saw in the TRC, there was quite a lot of references to this document, which we are going to get into now. Okay, Article 1. Indigenous peoples have the right to the full enjoyment as a collective or as individuals of all human rights and fundamental freedoms as recognized in the Charter of the United Nations, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and international human rights law. I'm going to be gushing about how wonderful this document is because, like me, this document is incredibly idealistic, but I also do need to take a realistic tone and say where we have fallen short of the articles as outlined in this document and the articles as outlined in the TRC. We all know that we have a long way to go. And the only way it's going to change is through changing the structure itself. Individuals have power only insofar as we work together, okay? I know that North America, especially, is a very, very, very individualistic society, or set of societies, because Canada is not the same as America, neither is Mexico the same as Canada, but this whole move towards hyper-individualism is actually really, really bad when we're trying to work for the rights of oppressed minorities. Because we always talk about minorities as collectives, don't we? Which is interesting because the majority has the right to individual liberty. Not so much with oppressed minorities, plural. You see what we're doing here, with the language even. Language informs thought, thought informs action. So we need to fix, the way we think about these things, I think. Because the in-group should not be the only one with the right to rights. Thank you, says the white woman. Jesus Christ. Next, Article 2. Indigenous peoples and individuals are free and equal to all other peoples and individuals and have the right to be free from any kind of, of discrimination, in the existence of their rights, in particular that based on their indigenous origin or identity. Okay, so basically, this one is an anti-racism policy, all right? And this whole thing is an anti-racism policy, quite frankly. So's the TRC, because, as I literally just said, the in-group should not have the right to autonomy and rights and freedom if the so-called out-groups, plural, don't. You see why individualism breaks down when you actually think about it too much, or think about it at all, which is what, the in-group doesn't seem to want you to do, because, like I say, we have the right to individualism. They do not, and there's a lot more of them than there are of us, by nature and by design. That's BS. Moving on. Whew. Article 3. You notice that these are much shorter than the TRC, by the way. Article 3. Indigenous peoples have the right to self-determination. Yes, by virtue of that right, they freely determine their political status and freely pursue their economic, social, and cultural development. Oh my goodness. As I say, very idealistic document. I approve. 2 thumbs up because I'm an idealist myself. You can see throughout American and Canadian history, I shouldn't have said one before the other, but options. You see throughout, white North American history, the failure to live up to these ideals. The fact that a document like this has been codified at all is basically an on-paper demonstration of where we have fallen short and what we need to do in order to stop falling short. Because that's kind of important if we want people to, have human rights, basic human rights, including clean drinking water. That's been a big one on my mind lately. Yeah. Don't go to the reserves if you don't want to see very, very sad things like, a complete lack of clean drinking water. Yeah. Next, Article 4. Indigenous peoples, in exercising their right to self-determination, have the right to autonomy or self-government in matters relating to their national and local affairs, as well as ways and means for financing their autonomous functions. All right. Basically a point within a point here. Indigenous nations, so I'm talking about Oneida Nation, Iroquois Nation, like all the different nations throughout North America. They are kind of countries within countries, sort of. It's interesting because I'm talking about Canada specifically here. Our federal government has some level of jurisdiction, as far as I'm aware, on the reserves. They were responsible for initially setting up the reserve system. They're not doing a very good job of it. But the whole line between you are governed by the federal government versus you are self-governing, the reason why they're not doing a good job of this is because that is a moving target. Basically, well, when you want clean water, you're going to have to do it yourself. Unfortunately, when you want resources and we're supposed to give them to you, we're going to back out of that one too. But, oh, by the way, when we want more of your land or, to put a pipeline through your ancestral territory, that's all us. That's where we are the power players, and we get to do that because we're the federal government. You see how this works? It's a little bit twisted, you think? Just a little. That is basically how it works in Canada. I assume that's how it works in America, but I don't live there. So I don't actually know. If you are American and you know how this works in your country, tell me, please, and thank you, in the comment section down below. But basically that is how it goes in Canada. If the people are in need of something, then they're kind of self-governing. But if the Canadian government is in need of something from them, i.e. land, money, resources, water, that's when the federal Canadian government steps in. And that's morphed in my mind. That's not good. All right, so the whole idea of the right to self-determination, that should not go to the point where it's like, we leave you with nothing because we're allowed to do that because you're a different nation and we don't have to worry about you. Here's the thing. The federal Canadian government made them into different nations, which is fine. They have the right to national autonomy. But if you're not going to take care of people on the land that you claim is yours, Canada, you do not have the right to that land. Sorry, you don't. Okay, moving on. Article 5, and this is the last for today. No, actually, we'll do number 6 today as well, just to keep the numbers even. All right, so Article 5. Indigenous peoples have the right to maintain and strengthen their distinct political, legal, economic, social, and cultural institutions, while retaining their right to participate fully, if they so choose, in the political, economic, social, and cultural life of the state. All right? That gets into the point I was just making. All right? They have legal autonomy within their own nations and amongst their own nations. They have the right to choose treaties. They have the right to trade, especially the treaties because those were made with the Canadian federal government, and treaties do not change, as I have said before. but they have their own systems of commerce. A lot of the economic goings-on this continent before the settlers got here was both collective and trade-based. I have actually heard that between different nations, there would be systems basically of sign language that were developed basically for the purpose of trade and of alliance, because you're going to get two different nations from two different parts of the continent. They're going to speak two completely different languages, and they're not going to be able to understand each other. So if you collectively develop a collective sign language, then it's going to go much smoother than if you were trying to communicate verbally or in written form too. There are some nations who did have formal writing systems before the settlers got here. There are some that didn't. So in order to kind of counteract those communication issues, they developed a universal sign language that could be used at least within certain regions, I believe, if not across the entire continent. I don't know if that part is true, but I really don't see how that would work, because Canada itself, just Canada alone, like, separate us from mainland North America. We are big enough on our own to be a continent, okay? Remember that continental North America, so Canada, America, Mexico, okay? We are large enough in our landmass to contain 4 Europes, all right? Everyone agrees that European societies are distinct from one another culturally, linguistically, religiously, economically, so on and so forth. Can we therefore not agree that a continent with 4 times the landmass, the nations on this continent are going to display the same amount of diversity? I think that we can agree on that. And it is a colonial narrative in which we do not agree on that. And that's BS. So basically what this one is saying is that they have the right to that cultural autonomy, you know, the cultural diversity, which we kind of tried to erase. Not a fan of colonization. I'm really not. You know, I'm sitting on stolen land, and I don't like that. But at the same time, you know, the whole idea of sharing the land, that was here. That idea was here way before we were. I'm not saying that everything here was golden before the settlers got here either. There were international warfare between the different nations. Okay, there was. But it was kind of exacerbated by people being forced to take sides with these powerhouse nations that came from a completely different part of the world and took over. Was not good. Still is not good. And documents like these see it as the responsibility of the people to try and undo that narrative. All right, number 6, and this will be the last for today. Oh, it's teeny weeny. Hello. Okay, number 6, Article 6. Every Indigenous individual has the right to a nationality. Yes, thank you. All right. I'm going to get into the whole discussion of matrilineal versus patrilineal. All right. Most European nations are patrilineal. For example, I have my father's surname, and if I ever get married, I will take my husband's surname. It's just basically how it's done in my culture, okay? In many European cultures, that's how it's done, in most, in fact. Whereas with the different nations here, you could get matriarchal matrilineal, where you would keep the mother's name, basically, or if you were female, keep your own name, and you would also be a member of your mother's clan. All right, to discuss the topic of clans. All right, this is going to be kind of in depth, but try to stick with me here, okay? You have, throughout the clans, all right, there are a different number of, like, animal name-based clans, usually. So you get, like, the bear clan, the wolf clan, the turtle clan, okay? That comes with your specific family lineage, most of the time. But different nations can have the same clans in them as well. This is a completely different thing, though. So Oneida Nation and Iroquois Nation, for example, those are two completely different countries, shall we say, okay? But for the purposes of marriage between nations, if you are, say, an Iroquois bear, if such a thing exists, I'm not sure, I'm sorry. I don't know whether the bear clan is in the Iroquois Nation, but if you are an Iroquois bear, and if the person you want to marry is an Oneida bear, you cannot get married in the system that they had between the nations here. That would have been considered incest, okay? That would be the same as me marrying my biological brother. No thanks, right? That's how they saw it, even if you were from the completely opposite side of the continent. Like, let's say someone lives in New Brunswick and they are, say, a Mi'kmaq bear, okay? Again, I don't know, sorry, whether the bear clan is part of the Mi'kmaq Nation, but you meet someone from British Columbia, and they are, oh gosh, what are some of the nations out in BC? Oh, jeez, what are the, I'm sorry, hang on, Quileute, okay? Let's say they're a Quileute bear. I only know that because of Twilight, I'm sorry. But the two of you, no matter the geographical distance and the actual by blood distance, would not be allowed to get married. Still considered incest. However, if you are, say, an Oneida bear versus, say, a Seminole wolf, okay? Again, don't know if the wolf clan is part of the Seminole Nation, sorry. You are allowed to get married, all right? That applies between any nation and within nations as well. So if you're an Oneida bear versus an Oneida turtle, you're allowed to get married, all right? So when it says you're entitled to a nation, not only does it mean Oneida versus Seminole versus Seneca versus the different actual nations that we recognize in Canada and America, but it also means your clan identity, which in some nations will come through your mother, if it's matriarchal and matrilineal, whereas in other nations that are patriarchal and patrilineal will come through your father. For example, the Seminoles are patriarchal and patrilineal, whereas I do believe the Oneida, which is why I keep using these as my examples, they're matriarchal, as far as I'm aware. So, holy mother, that was long-winded. But for as much as I understand about the clan versus nation system, that's as far as my understanding of that goes. I got educated on that in university, but that was about a decade ago. I'm starting to feel old. Am I starting to look old? Do I have gray hair? I don't think I have any grays yet, actually. But regardless, that's our 6 articles for today. I know that was a bit of a rant, but the thing about having a national identity is that it says that, yes, you are allowed to be who you really are. You don't have to be subsumed into the cultural, colonial narrative that we've been trying to force you into for the past several hundred years. It's a very important idea, the idea of cultural autonomy. As I say, if we allow it for one another, my brother-in-law, for example, he's Polish, okay? He's allowed to be Polish even though he's white and I'm white, and I'm like 25% Italian, 25% Dutch, 50-ish% Irish, there's some Scottish in there, but I'm allowed to be all of those things. So no matter who you are, you should be entitled to identifying whatever way you choose, with whatever nation you choose, with whatever clan you were born into, so on and so forth, and no one has the right to take that identity from you any more than we have the right to take it from one another as the settlers on this land. So those are the first 6 articles of the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. And I am going to end on a bit of a flat dip and see you all tomorrow. Thank you for your attention. I know this was a long one, but I hope that this series is going to be enjoyable because I really enjoy this document. It's very, very pretty. Yay! All right, I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye! Mwah!